Greetings. Welcome to day 14 of this fantastic adventure. 30 days of Halloween we're celebrating here. If you're new to this channel, just stopped in, found us today. I've been doing a 30 days of Halloween series here on my channel for several reasons, but mainly I thought it would be, I think we all could use a little something encouraging, something fun, something to get us into the mood of doing something other than being pretty miserable, which a lot of us have been this year. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of tough times and worrying about the holidays to come and what that's going to mean for you and your families and your friends. And Halloween is something we can do something with. So I thought it would be fun to spend a little extra effort maybe there this year. Anyway, today we're talking about welcoming. Our topic is welcoming the ancestors at Samhain. The veil is thinning. The veil is pretty thin right now. It's going to stay this way, increasingly thin, until Samhain, until the end of the month, first part of November. And this is an opportunity, many believe, to communicate with loved ones that have passed away. That this is maybe an opportunity for some of them to connect with you in some way. We've been discussing things like the Dia de Dead celebrations the Mexicans celebrate every year. It's a very big thing here for us in Southern California, and it's other places as well. That's just one ethnic group that happens to have those ideas about death. But all of us have this yearning, I think, and it's a natural yearning. And I don't think it's a coincidence. As the weather starts to change, it starts to get cooler weather. It was getting cooler weather for us last week and down into the 70s. Now we're back up. We're back up. We're back up there. Not quite as bad, but it's still pretty warm. But we've got it in our minds that the temperatures are starting to cool for the holidays coming up, and autumn is coming to some people, hopefully. And our minds sort of automatically turn to comfort food. And that's sort of what we're going to be talking about. I wanted to first say we're going to be discussing, and I'm going to actually be putting a link in this video for you, for an older video that I did. But one of the things that we do to welcome ancestors into our homes, many of us do, is to actually build an ancestor altar. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And they put it up for Samhain or Day of the Dead or whatever they want to celebrate, and then they typically remove it, and that's fine. I've done that in the past several times. I tend to leave my ancestor altar up. It's not quite as complete, elaborate as it is at this time of the year, but I try to maintain my connections with the ancestors as much as I can. Because first of all, ancestors, if you have the presence of your ancestors in your home, it can offer some protection to your home. They're keeping an eye out, so to speak. Your home becomes their home. So maybe they're not present all the time, but they come and go. Maybe some of them may come and go from your presence, and they help watch over things a little bit for you. Many things. If in the very least, it helps you maintain a connection with those that have passed on. You worry when people have died that you're going to forget what they look like or forget what their voice sounds like, etc. But you really don't forget the feeling that you had being with them, the lessons that they taught you, the memories that you cherish with them, and keeping them alive by continuing conversations with them, etc. You don't need a whole altar to be able to do that. You don't need a whole altar to be able to welcome them into this time of the year either. any space that you have in your home where you can maybe just display a few photos. And by displaying a few photos, I don't mean on your computer hard drive or whatever, or on Facebook. I mean, a lot of people share things on Facebook. Imagine, if it will, your grandmother or your grandfather, even your parents, some of your parents coming into your, or your grandparents coming into your space at this time to visit with you, or to, communicate in some way with you. What it would be like to walk into the world in 2020. I have trouble recognizing certain things that I see my grandson have in his possession. What in the world is that? It looks odd. It looks odd. So when we talk about having pictures around, I'm talking about actual photographs. Actual photographs. And if you have any photographs of your ancestors, you're really lucky. At all, that are not on the computer. They don't have to be framed. Just a little basket or bowl or something of photographs that you can actually pick up and hold in your hand. And hold that person, the memory of that person in your hands. And share it with some maybe your family. This is your grandmother, and let your son hold your grandmother in his hands while you tell him a story about your grandmother that he has never met. It's a very special time. Just by keeping a few things like that. If you don't have photographs, what is the scent? I think I mentioned this before. What is the scent of your grandmother? I mentioned Jergens lotion. But you can burn incense or have flowers that your grandmother loved or your mother loved, or something that's the smells that they would recognize. And there is no greater smell that they recognize than that is food. Family celebrations, think about it, revolve around food. And I was saying earlier, it's no coincidence that this time of the year our minds turn to food. Because we start to think about Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, Sunday suppers with our families, those home-cooked meals your grandmother made you or your mother made you. You'd come home from school as a kid and you come into a warm kitchen. What was on the stove? What did you smell? What did you see? These are the things that welcome us. And this is one thing I'm going to be doing today while I talk to you. I have a crock pot here. This is actually, do you know what a crock pot is? I'm not sure if people still use them. I know people now use Instapots, and I have one, which I hate it, but I'm trying. I use it right now to cook eggs for my dogs, which was a wise investment. I'm being sarcastic. But anyway, this crock pot was actually my mother's. The one that I have in my possession that I use most often, it was a wedding gift to me in 1972. But this one, my mother's, when I closed her house, when they moved from their house in Pennsylvania, after 50 years of living in the house, we closed up their house, and I took this because this was one of the first ones that had the removable liner. Mine does not. You have to wash the whole thing. Just like this, you can't, since it's electrical, you can't even immerse it or anything. So but you can take this out and you can store, you can put your food in here with a lid and put this in the refrigerator, or you can put this back in and heat it up or whatever. It's a really lovely thing. So we're going to be using hers, because if my mother would see that this is hers, I'm just turning it on to get started. And I'm making something from my youth, something that I associate with this time of the year, something I associate very strongly with family, not necessarily big celebrations, but at this time of the year when we go trick-or-treating, this is one of the things, even as when my children were small, I would make this kind of a thing for them to have some real food in their stomach before they went out for trick-or-treating, before they started eating all that candy and things. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, when we talk about real food, we talk about two foods normally. Potatoes. If you've ever been to Pittsburgh, nobody loves a potato more than Pittsburgh. They even put French fries in their salads in Pittsburgh. Potatoes were on our table almost every night of our lives growing up. And the other thing was some kind of a pig ham product, pork or ham or something that we ate all the time. I always say, you don't see walking down the street either a potato or a pig very often because they wouldn't be there long before somebody would take them home and eat them. But what I'm going to prepare here is just a simple, it's something we call ham barbecue. And I know here in California, here at least in California, barbecue does not mean this food. Barbecue means something that you would, you know, even grilling, we talk about barbecuing meat, slow cooking meat for a long time over fire. That verb is barbecuing. This is a barbecue, ham barbecue, they call this. It's just a sandwich. It's like a pulled pork, like a pulled pork, I guess, same thing. But this is using something that in Ligonier, where I grew up, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, is called chipped ham. And this is nothing but it's just cooked. It's a cooked ham. I think it's boiled. And it's sliced very, very thinly. We call this chipped ham in Pennsylvania. Here, when we moved here, there was no such thing. We finally found a butcher who would sell this kind of meat in the deli. And my husband sort of taught him how to shave it very thin. But it's a fine line. And to get it just the right consistency, if they make it too thin, it turns into mush. But you just want it really thin. If you're not from California, you probably know what I'm talking about when I talk about this. My husband was furious. I needed 2 pounds of this for this recipe, and it costs about $25 for 2 pounds. The stupid delis here are not even worth talking about. No such thing. That you have in other parts of the country. That's one where California really sucks. I'm going to start ordering this kind of thing online and having it shipped to me from time to time and invest in my own slicer because it can't be had here. They're going to more expensive kinds. We used to buy Isley's, I think it was. Anyway, I'm talking time. But anyway, I just have I'm just going to separate all this meat as I'm doing it. I can talk to you a little bit about what I want to talk to you today. But this is going to end up with some kind of it's like a tomato sauce, a sweet tomato, spicy tomato sauce, and it's cooked. Here I'm doing it in the crock pot. It can be done on top of the stove in a pot. But this is one of those things I love because you can set it in the crock pot. Like I said, when my kids were little trick-or-treating, if I couldn't get them to trick-or-treat before they left, before they went trick-or-treating, like when I was working, maybe didn't get home in time to feed them a real good dinner. This could either be in the crock pot waiting for us when we came home, or it could be if they were too excited to eat. Since it starts to get really dark this time of the year, they could go out trick-or-treating and come back and have this something real to eat. It wasn't just their junk. And to serve with it, I always make coleslaw. That's a third food. If we're going to talk about a third food that was very prevalent and still is, cabbage is a very popular food. When we were growing up, I think we had coleslaw or sauerkraut or some kind of cabbage, stuffed cabbage or something, just about, well, every week, at least. A couple times a week, maybe, all told. Cabbage keeps very well in the winter. Here it's a winter crop. We grow it here. I make sauerkraut here. The cabbage keeps very well. Lettuce doesn't transport well. Lettuce doesn't hold up. So back in the East Coast, when I was a kid growing up, to get the lettuce shipped in, by the time it got to the stores or got to the consumer, all the outside leaves had been taken away as they were damaged, whatever, and you're left with this really tasteless lettuce inside. So, it's kind of old. Cabbage tasted good no matter how old it was. As long as you could just peel the bad leaves off, and it still was good. It's good right to the core. As a matter of fact, the core is delicious to eat as well. or the heart as we called it. So this was served either with coleslaw or coleslaw on the sandwich itself, which is very, very delicious. But again, served on a bun like you would a hamburger. Your choice of a bun. And the coleslaw could be either mayonnaise based with a lot of vinegar. That's how I usually make it. Or my grandmother made it just with the vinegar and a little some sugar. No mayonnaise in hers. And I wish I could have. That's one of those things I wish I would have learned how to make. So anyway, I'm just dumping, as I take this apart, I'm just dumping it into the crock pot. And then I'm just going to add a few ingredients and it's going to be ready. Okay, so this is going to be around, and while we're eating this, we're reminiscing and talking about our parents and our grandparents. And you see, I'm bringing them close to me. I'm holding them close to me. I'm giving them something to recognize when they enter my home. So, now, we'll just go back to talking about the altar. I made an ancestor altar in my bedroom, in our bedroom. I believe it was 6 years ago. I have it, I can share the video with you. I will provide a link down below in the comment section. I apologize, the picture quality is not very good on the video, I don't think. I wasn't really used to holding the camera and doing anything. I had an older camera, and I had my editing software was, I don't even want to use for an editor, so wasn't that great. But it gives you an idea of the kind of things that I put on my ancestor altar at that time. Particularly, like it was, a lot of it was set up to serve the main purpose as an ofrenda would for Dia de los Muertos. The ofrenda being the altar that we would find there, decorated, highly decorated with the same kind of things, and I was really into that at the time. We were going to Olvera Street in Los Angeles to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. So that was really much part of my mind. But the part I really want you to see, if you're going to go to the video, I mean, it's not that long of a video, it's only 20 minutes or something. I have the ancestors, tokens for the ancestors, things that I put out, personal possessions with their photographs, something that belonged to them, or something like that for a lot of them, that I use as part of my altar. And I keep those things still with that altar. They're not out, the photographs are out all the time, but I have a little box on that altar that I store a lot of those things in. So they remain there, that I can get them out easily if I want to put them out for whatever reason. So, I don't know if I showed that box in that video or not. But if you're going to build an altar for scrap from the beginning, like if you really want a true ancestor altar, what might you put in it? Okay, you're going to see this is going to get very, very full, and I still have a good bit of meat to put in yet. I want to start adding some of my ingredients before, so I can, it's going to fall down as it cooks, it's going to fall down a little bit. But I just want to get some of my ingredients in with the meat a little bit before I, I don't want just the meat to be in there. And then I'll add the rest of the meat on top. So let me just break from my discussing an altar just to show you what I'm going to dump in here. It's going to be really simple. The original recipes that I had, the base is, first I want to say I always add, a little bit of onion. And here I have just a piece of an onion chopped up. It was like maybe the half of a small onion. It wasn't even. Like about a half a cup. And this is about a half a cup of celery, which is really like one stalk of celery, thinly chopped. And this is the ingredient that I always have in mind, that it's not always in everybody's, it's in a lot of them, but this is green pepper. And this green pepper came from my garden, which I feel very lucky to have, because Normally this time of year, most of my peppers I leave them on to ripen fully, so they will turn red or purple or orange, whatever, usually red when they're fully ripened. And that's when we pick them. But here, I really want the taste of a green bell pepper. So I will usually buy one and add it, or in this case, I had 2 small ones, so I have that in here. Some people do not like to add the green pepper. They like to add pickle relish instead. Either one's good. But I'm not using that because my basis, now this is where I deviate just a little bit, not really, but my original recipe that I had from my mother used ketchup, just plain Heinz. It was always Heinz because it was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We always had Heinz everything. But they used Heinz ketchup. And the original recipe said 32 ounces. Well, I found that a 24-ounce bottle of ketchup was fine, and I used the whole bottle. And be prepared. Since I used the whole bottle, I put a little bit of water, like a tablespoon or something of water in the bottle. Shake it up. And just keep that aside if I think I need to add water to the recipe to thin it. You're going to think in the beginning you need water, but if you've ever cooked in a crock pot, you notice that things seem to add water as they cook. And I think it's from the condensation from the lid or whatever. So with that happening, I don't find that you really need the water. But if you do need to add a little bit of water, that's perfectly fine. You just don't want your sandwiches to be runny. You want the sauce to be, it's going to be a little runny, but you're going to pick it up with a tongue to serve it. Or a slotted spoon. You're not going to scoop it and put, to put on a bun. You're going to want it. You're going to want the sauce to coat, but you're not going to want a spoonful of sauce on your bun. Okay. So anyway, either use the green, again, we're going to say the onion, about a half cup of onion, about a half cup of celery, chopped celery, and 1 green pepper chopped, or that's a green bell pepper, or I use 2 kind of really small ones. Okay, and then in place of the ketchup on mine, I'm using chili sauce. Again, you can buy chili sauce, Heinz chili sauce. We always had in the house. My father hated ketchup, but he loved chili sauce, which he called chili sauce. He ate that on everything. And this is chili sauce that I made from tomatoes I grew in my garden. Not this year. This is actually from 2018. And the difference between chili sauce and ketchup, not a whole lot, except ketchup is very smooth. You usually blend it really smoothly. Chili sauce stays a little bit chunkier. It has onion. They both have onion and things, and a little garlic and things. Both have a little sugar, a little vinegar, some vinegar. But chili sauce has some more spice added to it, maybe some cinnamon, or some of the spices that I don't think ketchup has. Plus, chili sauce has peppers, both red and, the ones I use, red and green, both in mine. And since I'm using these, I've canned in jelly jars, which are small. So for my recipe here, I'm going to use 2. And then we'll just see what happens. Now, if I find that's not going to be enough sauce, I can add a little ketchup to that if I want it, because there's not that much difference. Okay? Now, what else am I going to add? 3 more ingredients. 1 is necessary. 1 is absolutely necessary. Everything you make, whether you use ketchup or whether you use chili sauce, you need a little more sugar, because you want it to, it's not going to be real sweet, but we're going to put a couple more savory things. The ketchup, the additional onion, the additional celery, the additional pepper is going to make it kind of savory. We want to add a little sweetness, and instead of, you could add, my original recipe called for 2 teaspoons of sugar. I'm going to use a tablespoon since I'm using chili sauce. It's a little tartar than ketchup. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of brown, because that's where I'm rolling right now. I'm just feeling brown. I'm feeling brown. I'm feeling brown because in the days when we were little kids and we wanted a snack, we didn't have snack foods. My mother would say, well, go get yourself a lump. So we would go to the box of brown sugar that was in the cupboard. And in those days, it didn't have all these additives to keep it from caking. There would always be lumps, hard lumps in there. My mother used to keep a slice of bread inside the brown sugar to keep it from lumping, which irritated me so much because I was only allowed to eat it by the lump. If there was no lump in there, I didn't get it, so go have a lump. Go have a lump, she would say. And I was laughing because even as we were kids, I'm going to add a little more meat because I have part of the second pound, but I have not put in. We went to did shopping. We went to the local Johnstown for our Christmas shopping. We always went to Penn Traffic and Johnstown department store. Everybody went, and I've mentioned that before. And there was a little luncheonette inside that store, because we would spend the day in the store. My grandmother would go, my mother would go, sometimes an aunt or my father. Always a whole carload of kids. And, we would have lunch there. And we always pretty much bought the same thing for lunch. But the one thing they would do in the restaurants, they would have lump sugar on the tables instead of the little packages of sweetener that you get today. There were actual lumps of sugar in a little dish sitting on the table in case you got coffee or tea and you needed to sweeten it. Just always sitting there, like the little packages of sugar and sweet and low and things that are sitting there today. But they were sugar lumps, little lumps of sugar. And while we were waiting for our order, we were starving to death, And I'm talking about in the 50s when we were able to convince our parents, particularly our grandparents, that we were going to starve to death if we did not have a snack. Again, no snack food, so we got to have a lump. One lump, one. Don't eat two. There are starving kids in China that don't have any. Only one. You can only have one. So, sugar is very much part of my memories. As you can probably guess. But anyway, there's my meat. Put out meat in, and that's as much as we can get in there for sure. Now, what else is going to go in this? I'm putting just a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. I don't know why, but that was in the original, and I wasn't going to put it in this time, but I decided to go ahead, and it's probably about a tablespoon. I just do a couple little, I think in a lot of dishes where meat is not real meaty, in this case we're talking about, this doesn't taste real hammy because it's lunch meat, and it's boiled ham, and it's just not like baked ham, like it has that good taste. I think in a lot of those instances, I use this a lot of times, so I'm not putting meat at all. When I'm using mushrooms for a main dish or whatever, we'll add a little bit of Worcestershire. Because we want that. Well, this one has vinegar, so we're adding vinegar, we're adding molasses and salt. And of course, some more dehydrated onion, dehydrated garlic, and lots of natural flavors and colors that who knows what they are, and dextroses and acids and corn proteins and soys and all the horrible things that are probably killing us. We're putting it in the ham barbecue. And one last thing, so put this here or don't. Put it or don't. And a little bit of yellow mustard. I don't like this. I don't like to eat this. I don't like to look at it. Woof. But I keep it in my, and I just squirted about a tablespoon in there. Because again, this is adding some more, a little bit more vinegar and some mustard seed, which is really good. Turmeric, paprika. It adds a little more, gives a little more kick to this. This is optional. My mother never put this in. My mother's was ketchup, sugar, Worcestershire, And she would put a little salt and pepper, which I'm not, because everything I've added has enough salt in it. I don't think we need pepper because I have enough flavor, so I don't need any pepper. And that's just about it. And in a little while, I'm just going to put the lid on that. And it's on high. I'm getting it started. The cool thing about a crock pot, if you've never cooked in a crock pot, you can either do things like all day on low forever, like 12 hours, or you can do it in half the time, like on high. Or you can go high-low. Cook it on high, keep it warm forever on low. You know, this one is because it's my mother's newfangled, that this comes out, has a warm setting. Mine was just higher low. But mine still works. They all work. It doesn't matter. It's just a low. It's like, why do easy bake ovens work when you're kids? It's just like a very low setting of something. You keep it in there long enough, it's going to cook it. Okay. Anyway, so you put it on high, you put it on low. It depends on how fast you want to eat it. If you don't care, you put it all day, put it on low. I want it a little faster, so I'm going to put it on high. Once it starts to cook down, you're going to see water's going to be in there. I'm going to be able to get in there and start stirring it around, moving it around, getting it incorporated. But right now, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just getting it started. Can anything be easier than this? Nothing could be easier. And since we've added the yellow mustard, this is a really Halloween dish because there's nothing scarier than yellow mustard. Like, is there? I don't know. Okay, so back to that was that. Let me know if you try anything like this or you've ever eaten anything like this. Okay, if you're from Pittsburgh, I know you have. Building an altar. What are you going to do to build an altar? If you're going to build an altar, just real quickly, I just want to go through this with you because just think about it. There's a few things. Now, this is all my personal opinion. It's also the personal opinion of a lot of other people. And you can argue with me. I don't care. If you want to argue, go ahead. But in this one case, I want to say, use some kind of a cloth. It doesn't have to be a whole table. It could be part of a table. But whatever you're going to put your items on, even if it's a basket of pictures, photographs that are just not even framed. Okay, if that's all it is, and a candle, put it on something. Either a tablecloth or a little, like a placemat kind of a thing, or a little doily or something. Because first of all, that is setting your space. I told you a long time ago in a video, anytime I build anything like an altar, I set my space. Tarot reading, set my space. I have a card. I have a cloth. Okay? But think about it. You're inviting your ancestors over. You're inviting them into your house. Think about it. You might, like you invite people for dinner. Don't you clear your table and, you know, most times, civilized people put a tablecloth or placemats or something on a table. At the very least, I will put a runner on there. I just do, and some kind of a centerpiece. That's what you do. You make it nice. You make them feel welcome. You don't just stick a basket of photographs on top of a pile of junk mail and magazines. That doesn't make anybody feel special. Okay? We already talked about the photographs and not computers. We don't want computers around this. We do not want that. Any electrical things. We don't want that around here. Personal items. You'll see some of the personal items, like examples that I put in my video if you go there. But if you don't go to the video, things we've talked about a little bit before. Your grandfather's pipe, your grandmother's knitting needles, your mother's brooch, your father's, you know, lodge pin, whatever you have, or you know, your brother's watch, whatever you have, it's something they would recognize. If you have anything like that. If you don't, what would they like? Would they like a special kind of a flower, or like a special kind of or a picture of something they like, something that they, you know. So they know that you remember what they used to like, you know. My brother doesn't have many things, and he's not deceased. But if he were to put up an altar for my father, he doesn't have a lot of memorabilia because he's lived a lot of his own adult life on a sailboat. But my father loved my brother's sailboat, and he loved going sailing with my brother. So if my brother was going to, and my brother doesn't have the sailboat anymore, but if he was going to make an altar to honor my father, I would imagine he would be looking for a picture, either of the two of them sailing, or a picture just of a sailboat. Something that good memory, to represent a good memory he had with my father. Do you see? That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Incense. In Dia de los Muertos celebration, they use copal. You smell copal burning all the time. But other things can be used as well. But copal is specific usually to this kind of thing because copal is something that it's said to cleanse the air a little bit, which allows the spirits to enter. There's not a lot of, you know, it gives them a better and easier path to enter. Candles, if you're gonna usually you have a candle for each person, to represent a person. If you have, like in my case with my family and my husband's family, I might be, I might be honoring my ancestors, he might be honoring his. We might use 2 candles if we're, I wouldn't put up, if I'm honoring all of our grandparents, we each have 4 grandparents, that would be 8 candles, that might be get too much. But often candles are used to represent, it could just be the group or all the ancestors, a specific candle. And then very often candles are put up to show directions, to let the spirits, like in the cardinal points. Very often you will see that if you have enough room, north, south, east, west represent it helps, it's guiding to guide the spirits. But that's not necessary. But if I was going to use cardinal candles, I would also use an ancestor candle, at least one to represent the ancestors. Any divination tools that you're going to be using, cautioning again, remember if you haven't seen my video before when I said how do you communicate with your ancestors, if you plan on putting a Ouija board on your altar, please remember the caution that I gave you the other day. It was Friday when I posted the video about using a Ouija board, not to keep the planchette on the board when you're not there with your hands on it. Just the board is fine if you want to use just the board on there. Or pendulum, you can use a pendulum on there, or tarot cards if you could use tarot cards. Again, that's a way to let the spirits know that you're going to be, it's like saying, I'll call you later, leave your tarot cards on there. That's kind of the way. And as a matter of fact, you can actually write them a letter or leave a message for them in another way. Yesterday's video, I think, not yesterday's. Yeah, yesterday's. This is kind of a blur to me because of doing all these videos. But yesterday when I talked about, the communication, the butterfly as a symbol of the communication between my friend and I, perhaps, that I could leave a picture of a butterfly if I didn't have a tarot card out there to let him know that I see him, I see you. It's my way of leaving him a message. Or I could leave him a message, an actual message, by writing a letter. Write a letter to your ancestor that you want to communicate and leave it, don't mail it. Just write a letter, don't put it in an envelope, just leave the written page on your altar. So maybe if they're there, when you're not there, they can read it. Okay? The other things that they do at Elvira Street, we saw everywhere were the marigolds, everywhere, marigolds coming out your ears, marigolds. The petals, they were intact marigolds on their altars, the ofrendas, etc., but the petals were scattered everywhere. They are said to have, by the color, the strong color, the orange color, and yellows and reds, and the strong scent of the flower. It's not actually marigold, it's something that's a kind of marigold that actually attracts them as well, along with the copal. Okay. And also they do believe, I have to say, that they believe that the monarch butterflies hold a spirit of the departed within them, which is why that my Santa Muerte deck has so many images of the butterfly in there, and uses the butterfly for the for all the tens. Is it all the tens? All of the tens in the minor arcana are butterflies. Also, they also, on the ofrendas, it's the bread, the bones with the bone shape on the top. That represents bread, and that's to be consumed. And oh, this is what's interesting. You know, we talk about leaving food out for the ancestors and drinks out for the ancestors. They put food and drink out on their ofrendas, but they do not believe that the spirits are going to come and drink that beer or eat that cake. They don't believe that. They think that the spirit of their ancestors is going to consume the essence of that being left there, the essence of it. And then afterwards, they can share it if they want to share the bottle of beer that they leave out for their father. After the essence of the beer has been consumed by their father, they can again celebrate their father by drinking beer, if that's what they wish to do, or eating the food. That's fine. The papel picado that I was talking about, the beautiful paper flags, I'm going to be hanging some here in my welcoming altar that you'll see in a future video. But they're just carved, cut out. They remind you of the snowflakes, how we used to cut out the snowflakes in elementary school out of the paper. And, you know, or paper dolls, or you string a, I'm probably aging myself terribly. We would cut out a doll and open it up and you have a string of dolls. Papel picado is like that. But they're cut very fine paper, like a crepe paper almost, that are cut. I can show you that in another video. That represents air, and they're streamed those banners of the papel picado all over the place. Fire, of course, we mentioned the fire and the cardinal points, and they also put out water to quench their thirst. Water to quench their thirst. But most of us, you know, put water on our altars anyway. So that's pretty much it. Again, just something. Show if you're interested in welcoming your ancestors, having your ancestors communicate with you in some way this season, and especially as Halloween. Show them that. Invite them. Welcome them. You know, put up things to help make them want to come, and then while they're there, try to have ways, even if it's simply just, I wrote you a letter on this altar so I can communicate, so I can tell you how much I love you and how much I miss you and how I think about you every time I make ham barbecue. I think about you in your crock pot every time. Every time. You want them to know that you want them to know that. Whatever you can do, you do. These are just some suggestions I'm throwing out there. It's all up to you. Make it special for you and your family. That's all. Thanks for watching so much, and I'll see you again tomorrow. I wish you blessings.